Painting awesome power armor can sometimes be a pain, and if you've ever gotten frustrated trying to paint a Space Marine and make it still look good while at the same time not taking forever, this video is for you. Now, I've been painting for over 10 years, and in that time, I've placed in a few painting competitions, and I've painted my fair share of power armor super soldiers in my time. And today, I'm going to walk you through my approach to painting a higher quality power armor that doesn't take forever, but also doesn't look bad and doesn't give you that speed painted look. If I had to draw a triangle with time, quality, and money all together, one of those like weird triangle graphs, I would say that this technique falls along the quality and the money saving part. It does take a little bit more time, but in the end, it's worth it. This technique doesn't use a whole lot of expensive tools or high-end paints and things like that. All of the stuff that you're gonna see here just uses the tools that you can buy at your local hobby store. So if you're painting Space Marine, an Infinity Squad, maybe some Stormtroopers or Clone Troopers, or hopefully your Void Strikers, then keep watching. I think you'll be happy with your product at the end. Now before we start slinging paint around, we're going to cover the tools that we need. You're going to need 2 brushes. The first one, it's going to be your workhorse. This can either be a sable or a synthetic brush, doesn't really matter. The other one is going to be your edge highlighting brush. This one needs to be a Kolinsky sable brush if you can get your hands on it. If not, use the best synthetic brush that you can. And I'll cover more about why that is later on in the video. Don't get hung up too much on the number that's on the brush itself. Those are just arbitrary numbers that help assign sizes to brushes, but they are not standard across the industry. And on top of the brushes, you can use a wet palette. It isn't strictly necessary, but it will help keep your paint wet while you're painting. And finally, here are all the paints that I use in the video. So to start, you're going to use the tried and true method of 2 thin coats of paint over a black primer. And the key here is to let that first coat completely dry. If you don't, and you keep trying to work the paint, you're actually going to peel up layers of paint because it partially dries. And then as you work over it, you're going to peel that layer up and it's going to leave this nasty looking coffee stain. So let that first layer completely dry. You would much rather go too thin and have to apply 3, 4, even 5 layers rather than peel up that first layer and then you're left with having to either sand down the model just a little bit or just accept the fact that there's going to be an ugly little blotch on there that you're either going to have to turn into battle damage later on, or it's just going to look bad. Your choice. Now, the next step is going to be shading, and there's really 2 ways to do this. You can do the volumetric highlighting method, which is what you're going to see a lot of those pro painters use, or you can kind of use the more wargamer style where we kind of just dunk the model in some shade. I like to do something a little bit more in between, but I'm going to show you both methods here. So for the volumetric method, we're going to try to mimic the way that light would fall across the shapes that are on our model. For this specific model, I'm using this technique across the abdomen, a little bit on the shoulders, and on the chest, because that's where your eyes are going to be drawn to. And so I'm okay with spending a little bit extra time on these parts. And I'm going to use the other method on like the legs, the arms, the back, places that you're not going to really pay a whole lot of attention to unless you're just picking up the model and staring at it. And even then, it's still going to look really, really good. It's just not going to look as good as that volumetric style. If you want me to cover volumetric highlighting in a lot more detail in another video, drop a comment down below and then also specifically mention which model you'd like to see me do, especially if it's one of the models that I make, because then I can really get into teaching you how to do that. It does take a little bit of time and it's definitely its own dedicated video though. Now, before we move on to the next step, we're going to want to reinforce our base tone one more time. And the way you do this is you just thin out your base tone again and you recoat all of those areas that you got a little too much of your shade on. And it really shouldn't take too long. If you find that it's taking a long time, you might be overthinking it a little bit. And in that case, just go ahead and get those coats of paints on pretty quick, let it be, move on. If you need to come back later, it's actually really easy to do using this method. Okay. This is the part of the video where your armor is going to come to the next level. Now, it's edge highlighting, but wait, don't leave me. I'm going to show you some techniques that I use to make edge highlighting work. It is a pain in the neck if you don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to show you some really simple tricks on how to make it work for you. The first step is getting the things that you really need. The first one is a good brush. I talked about earlier a good Kolinsky sable brush. This is going to be a really long brush with a really sharp tip using those Kolinsky sable hairs. Now, sometimes it's hard to get those here in America. I find that Monument Hobbies is usually where I go to pick mine up. I also got the Sam Lens brush kit thing, and it had a really good brush in there that's the sable type. So if you could find that at your local store, go ahead and get that while you can. Otherwise, you can go online and order them. I'll put the link in the description down below. There we go. I've learned this. It takes some time, right? Next up, you're going to need the right paint. But what is the right paint? The right paint is going to be a paint that has a lot of pigment density in it. Usually these paints are the base coat lines from Games Workshop or the edge highlighting lines from them. These paints just basically cover a lot better in one coat. But what if you don't have that color, or they don't sell that specific color that you need for the armor that you're painting? Don't worry. The way to tell if you've got a good edge highlighting paint is to just thin it down a little bit and see how well it covers over a black base coat. If it covers pretty well, hey, there you go. You've got a great edge highlighting paint. But what if you don't even have one of those? You can actually make one. So what you'll do is you'll take your ideal color, the one that you really want for your edge highlights, but maybe isn't a high pigment density. You're gonna mix it with another color that does have high pigment density that's as close as you can get. Either whites or really light grays are gonna always be a really good option here. But if you're painting in like a warmer spectrum, right, like maybe you're doing a bright yellow, white will work for that. Sometimes a really bright orange will work too, but it needs to be pretty pale. And last but not least, it's this really secret ingredient that no one talks about, but only I'm going to give you the secret. It's just a paper towel. That's it. I'm kidding. It's not that big of a deal. The paper towel is kind of the unsung hero of edge highlighting, and I know that sounds crazy, but let me explain it. I'm going to show you here. Whenever you're edge highlighting, the key to it is, of course, the right brush and the right paint, but also making sure that you have the right amount of paint to water ratio in your brush. And the towel, the paper towel, is how we do that. So the trick that I like to use is I actually take a little bit of water and I go ahead and wet my paper towel a little bit. Once I've done that, now I've got this damp area where once I load my brush up with paint that is close to the right consistency, I can then wipe it off on that wet area. What this will do is it's gonna draw out a little bit of that paint, but it's gonna keep the moisture a little bit higher. What that does is it acts like a lubricant on your brush and allows that edge highlighting paint to come off really, really easy, which is what you want. The key to it, right, is to get paint to come off when you want it to, not whenever you don't want it to. It's gonna take some experimenting. It's gonna be worth it in the end. Whenever you're edge highlighting, this is the first time you've done it, start off on the back of the model, because you're gonna mess up the first time. That's okay. It's gonna be fine. I promise, no one's gonna know. So you just go in there, work on the back side, and then once you kind of get the hang of it and you kind of know where your consistencies are and you've got that down, switch over to the front or whatever part's most important to you. Then go in once you've got the hang of it and do those parts first. I promise you, it'll be worth it. So now you've got your really good armor down. You've got your base coat, you've got your shades, you've got your edge highlighting, and you're probably pretty tired at this point, right? So what I like to do now is to go in there and paint all the secondary details that need to be painted, but aren't that important. So for this model, that's gonna be some of his armor trim, and I just use a simple metallic paint from Vallejo for that. That covers really well. If you have to use GW paints, like a lot of people do, just use like some Lead Belcher or Iron Hand Steel, I think is one of my favorites. It's a little brighter. And then after that, I paint his undersuit, and because we've got this really bright red model, I actually want to use red's complement, which is green, but I'm not going to do like a bright green because that's just going to be like a Christmas tree, right? Use a really desaturated green, and for this one, I use Deathcore Drab. Once that's done, quickly shade the model just using a little bit of Aggressor shade. Now it's time for what's arguably the most important part of the model, which is the face. I've talked a lot about painting faces in my previous video, so if you want a little bit more of an in-depth analysis of that, go watch it. It's a little bit towards the middle. But for this video, I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter. So for any skin, you're just going to start with a mid-tone. For me, I use the P3 skin tone that they sell in their starter set. Covers really well. A lot of people who use GW paints just start with Cadian Flush Tone. You can't go wrong. After that, you're going to do your first rounds of shades and then highlights by mixing in that base tone with a little bit of a darker color. And then after that, your highlight in with your mid-tone. I think I did that right. Either way, what you're trying to do here is you're trying to go really slow. Because what I find with painting faces is it's so small, right? That you have to go slow. We need a lot of contrast whenever we do miniature painting. But whenever you do this with faces, if you go too fast, it's gonna make the face look almost like it's sunburnt. And so you wanna make sure to go really slow, that way you get really good blends. It's gonna take some time the first time you do it. Again, it's worth it. And you're gonna get better at it the more you do it, and then it'll actually become a lot faster. And you'll start to develop your own techniques too for how to do it quicker and what's good enough for you versus what's good enough for like maybe one of your leader models. One thing I wanna mention here is about painting eyes. Eyes are hard. There's no way around it. It requires probably the highest level of brush control that you're gonna need, secondary to something like maybe even freehand. If you want some tips for that, go watch my video. I think I have a short on it. I'll link it here if I can find it. And then also watch my last video. I talk a little bit more about it there. Now step 4, which is a power sword. It's not a part of the armor, but it's going to complement the armor, which makes it kind of part of it. And so to do this, I actually did go for a nice dark glowing green sword. These are the colors I used. The colors that you use don't really matter as long as you start from a dark base coat and then just work your way up slowly. This is actually pretty similar to painting the face of the model. Luckily though, on the sword, you just have a lot larger area to work with. If you want a really in-depth video on how to paint power swords in this technique, again, drop a comment down below and let me know which model you'd like for me to do it on. If you don't want to paint a power sword like this that takes a really long time, just go in there and paint it metal. It works great. And with that, we're done. About 3 main steps. The first one, getting a great base coat. The second one, learning how to shade your model really well. And the third one, how to get those really crisp and good edge highlights. If this guide has been helpful for you, drop a thumbs up, and if you really want, head to my Kickstarter landing page and follow my project. The Chronicles of Sol is a game that I designed all of the models for, wrote all the rules for, and all of the lore for. If you're interested in it, it'd mean a lot to me if you go follow the Kickstarter landing page and follow me here on YouTube. I'll be launching the game sometime next year. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.